So I'm going to demonstrate to you how I would go about overlaying an image for the purposes of a hypothetical bird survey. So I've picked Tinto Hill as an example, not because there's really anything happening there bird survey wise to my knowledge, but simply because it's a pretty hill. So I've created a folder here, right clicking on it, add image overlay, give it a good name. So you have a transparency slider, can make this job a bit easier. I have another tool in here which is this grid lines, which is a terrific tool. Where were we? Demonstration. Just open this up. So you go into properties and you can rescale things from dragging them around. I'm going to cancel that, because one neat trick is you can rescale in 2 dimensions at once, so you preserve the aspect ratio if you press the control key. Was it shift? Cancel. Oh, it was definitely a shift key, not control. Here we go. I'll zoom in a bit. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 kilometres. These kilometre squares are now all visible. So fact is, on a OS map you have these visible, and this particular tool, grid lines, is fantastic for helping you to rescale images that have an OS grid on them. So I like to make this shape so that it's very close to a grid line, so that when you rescale this image, you're not rescaling an offset from where it should sit. You're just scaling the image itself. Otherwise you have to keep dragging it and moving it each time you rescale it. So these are looking somewhere near the right size now. Fact is, you can rescale this without any real reference to the landscape itself if you have these grid lines. It's super helpful. Of course, the closer you zoom in, the better an indication you will have of this, how good a fit this is. At this point I'm just going to drag them separately in their own directions. One thing you'll notice is, oh, actually these are pretty well lined up. So it's now the right size. Is it in the right place, sir? No, I don't think so. Now let's have a look for what features I might line this up with. Oh, we've got a little reservoir down here. That's perfectly lined up now. So next thing to do is I'm going to show you, I also have this thing here. I'm going to copy this. I always copy a new semi-transparent grid to a project. Now this is one of the really cool things about Google Earth that I'm not aware of any GIS is doing. As you've seen, this supports transparency, but even better than that, if you have a semi-transparent layer, like you can have complete transparency and complete opacity in the same image, and I'm not aware of this being supported by any GIS platform other than Google Earth. So where's Tinto Hill? I've lost it now. Oh, there we go, there's Tinto. So I drag that overlay there. Zoom back into Tinto Hill survey area. Now the idea behind this scaled grid is that, let's have a look, is it actually scaled? It is scaled, I think it is. Oh, hang on, cancel that, that's not what I picked, the wrong one there. Just check the scaling's correct. Yeah, it looks correctly scaled. You would just scale this in exactly the same way as I scaled the image below it, with the drag handles. And the really cool thing about this is this gives you 100 meters increments. This is great for estimating distances on landscape if you need to get within 100 meters of everywhere on a site, which is what's specified by the Moorland breeding bird survey methodology, Brown and Shepherd. This would be a horrible killer site to walk, so your objective really would be to try and line up your grid with an angle that allows you to walk along the contours. And I don't know, I'm just going to go through this very quickly. Okay. Style and colour, by default it's white, it doesn't show up very well. I'm going to go for red and 2. Okay, and oh, that's not what I meant to do. Need properties open to actually draw any of these routes. So idea is walking zigzags to fill in the area. This is actually quite a labour intensive job. It takes quite a lot of planning to work out how to divide a site into lots of sections that are a sensible day's effort. You know how many days you have. You try and split your site out, and you'll find that you end up with lots of these routes, and it becomes a matter of taking some of the distance from some of the sites, some of the routes rather. Let's have a look at the measurement. I'll say I've got X amount of time to walk this. This is, I tend to think of these in kilometers. I would say that 10 kilometers is a reasonable walk on a moorland site for a day. This is quite a tough one. People's preferences are going to vary as well. There's a lot of gradients here. It's a fairly savage site. But the idea is that you start adding more and more sites to this and keeping within your survey area, which is marked by this red line boundary. If you have a map that doesn't have grid lines on it, it could be very helpful if you put way markers at the corners of woodlands, for instance, or you know, the edge of your reservoir here, or some feature that's fairly consistent, because the waypoints will still show through when you drag this image around, and you can make it line up with those waypoints. Oh, thanks for your time.